I do want to mention something which is connected to current events. Maybe you've seen it because it's circulating. Everybody is like sort of amazed, open mouthed about it. One of the things I just recently learned was the Sicha Parsha Mishpatim. Hope you remember. This week is Parsha Mishpatim. What was the Sicha Parsha Mishpatim? It was about the fact that the United States and Russia got together with a few other countries and made an announcement that we should enter a new era, an era of peace, not wars. We should get rid of the weapons that we have, and especially nuclear weapons. And we should make a decision that whenever there's an issue, countries should resolve it through discussion, peaceful negotiations, not through war. So when that happened, the Rebbe said what we just witnessed is the beginning of the prophecy of Nebuah, the Kitzu Chabesim Le'itim. That means that Hashem says Moshiach will come, the swords will be broken and destroyed, and they'll turn into plowshares. And what happened here was that the president announced that let's get rid of all these weapons. Let's stop manufacturing weapons. The amount of money that it costs is millions and billions of dollars, and we'll use that money to help the economic situation in our countries. The Rebbe said this is clearly a fulfillment of a nevuah. The second thing the Rebbe said is, if you look in Navi, it says, who's going to make this happen? Moshiach. That means not only we're seeing a nevuah being fulfilled, but we're already seeing that Moshiach is already having an impact in changing the world. Remember the Sicha? This week, President Trump, who's the president of the United States of America, this is in the news, I didn't make this up, this is in the news, reached out to China and Russia. By the way, China was never part of any deal. Reached out to China and Russia, and what did he say? That we have to reinforce and strengthen his deal about getting rid of weapons. There's no point spending so much money on weapons. Let's better use that money. Let's get rid of these weapons and let's use the money to improve the lives of people in the countries. And almost the same exact message, which is amazing. We see that the Rebbe's words are continuing. Or it's more amazing, when did it happen in the Parsha of Mishpatim again? And by the way, if you remember in the Sicha, the Rebbe explained that it specifically happened in the month of Shvat, and specifically happened in Parsha Mishpatim, how it's related to Shvat and Mishpatim. Because what's happening in the world is connected to Mashiach, not just happening like random. So this is basically what's going on now, and we'll see the follow-up in Mirz Hashem. Okay, so the Sicha of Shoftim. This Sicha, the first part, we're going to start with page 90. No. We'll start with page. Yeah, we'll start with page 97. They're just going to go over briefly what it says until 97. This is also one of the landmark sichas, one of the outstanding sichas, where the Rebbe spoke about that his words regarding Mashiach's coming is being pronounced as a nevuah, and we'll explain it. But what happened was that it's Parsha Shoftim, where it begins with the words Shoftim v'sheitrim titin lecha b'chol sharecha. That in every city there should be judges and there should be policemen. In the Navi, it says that when Mashiach will come, there's a passage where it says, I will give you back, I will return to you your judges and your advisors. And the same thing in davening. In davening, in Shemines, we say, Hashiva Shevteinu Kvarishena, V'yayatzenu Kivatchila. Hashem, bring back to us the judges like before, and the advisors like before. And the Rebbe asked, why in the pasuk in Chumash it says judges and policemen, and in Tanakh and in davening it says judges and yoyatzim and advisors? And the Rebbe explained, the answer is very simple. What's the purpose of a policeman? Policemen are there to enforce the law. That if the judge says that Reuven has to pay Shimon money and he doesn't want to, then they're going to use force to make him do it. If somebody steals someone else's house, someone else's field, someone else's possession, and doesn't want to give it back, and the Bezdin rules you have to give it back, and he says, I don't care. So then you need someone to physically force and take it away from him. That's the function of a policeman. When Moshiach comes, there won't be such a thing. Everybody is going to want to follow what the Torah says. So if two people have an issue, they're going to go to the Bezdin, and all they want to know is, what does the Torah say? I owe him money, I'll give him the money. I don't owe him money, then I won't give him the money. It's nothing to fight about. If the Torah says this way, that's what I'm ready to do. So when Mashiach comes, he won't need police, won't need shotrim. There's nothing to enforce. Everybody wants to do what the Torah says. Instead of that, it says a different thing, Shoftim and Yayatzim. And the Rebbe went into an explanation, this is a few pages, where the Rebbe explains what is the difference between a shofet, the judge, and a yoyetz. Now, the general difference is a shofet is an authority. And he says, you have to pay money, or you have to go to this place. You're obligated to do this or that. It's an authority that's telling you what to do. An advisor, when you go for advice, it's not an authority that's telling you what you have to do. Advice means that the person is discussing it with you, the person is talking to you and speaking in a way that you should understand why you should do this, and you should sell the house, you should not sell the house, you should move here, you should do this, you should do this business, something else. But a shofet doesn't have to give reasons and explanation. He tells you, this is the halacha, you have to pay this money. But that's generally speaking what the Rebbe talks about. So now in Tess, so it's page 97 where it says Tess, the Rebbe begins to say that there's really many different situations we can say one is more like the judge, and one is more like Nevuah. One is more like Yeyetz, an advisor. So here it says, Dugma la nisker la'el, something which is similar, Yeshna ma'achilik shebein divrei Torah v'divrei Nevuah. This is also a difference between Torah and Nevuah. And by the way, in Parsha Shoftim, it also talks about Nevuah. What is the difference? Again, Torah hilamayla me'olam. Torah is higher than the world. Because Torah came before the world was created. Torah is something which is Hashem's Chokhmah. Hashem's Chokhmah is beyond nature, beyond the world, beyond the Gashmis, the limited world that we know. So Torah is l'mayla mishayches l'gidra eilam. Kishem shales machshava tvisa be'klal. Just like it says that no mind can grasp Hashem. So therefore, no one could really grasp Hashem's wisdom. V'agam she'Torah yarda v'nasa, even though the Torah descended, uba b'slapshus b'agona v'asaga l'mata, and the Torah down here is in a way that we can understand it. Nevertheless, it's the avo he nisheres be'etzem mohusa etzem ha'Torah v'maylam agona v'asaga. Torah, in essence, still remains something which is higher than our logic. But the Eibishter allowed this Torah, which is higher than logic, to come down through Ishtalshalus, through Tzimtzum, and take on a form of logic. But in essence, Torah is higher than creation. Again, Torah existed before creation, and the creation came as a result from Torah. But Torah itself is higher. Therefore, the way the Torah has an effect on the world is also b'derech tzivui, psak din, like a psak din. Torah says, you can't carry this, you can't take this, you can't eat this. Some things you understand, some things you don't understand. Torah says that this is an authority is telling you what to do. Nevuah is different. Even though Nevuah is also the words of Hashem, but Arei is galus of the kusla nevroyim. But here's where Hashem appears to the world and to the creation in our sort of way. Like it says, Gila Soidel Avodim, and Hashem reveals his secrets to the Avodim and Nevi'im, to his servants, which are Nevi'im. The Gidram Haim. If a person is a Navi, then the Nevu is given to him in a way that he can understand it with his logic. Shenik Letus. Let's turn the page to 98. The Daite V'Sichlei Shel HaNavi V'Eifen Shu Misachad Im Zeh. I don't want to go to every single word because we'll never cover the whole Sicha. It's going to be tough. But again, what the Rebbe is explaining is that the difference between Torah and Nevuah, and that's why Nevuah is like Yeyitzim, like an advisor. Explains it also ways according to Kabbalah. And that means that the Nevuah is given to the world, given to a Navi in a way that it adjusts itself according to the world. Torah affects the world from the distance. I think it's higher than the world and give it psak din for the world. And that's why when a Navi says something, that's more like the Eitzah, like he's giving advice. Of course, it's coming from Hashem. Like one of the things they ask the Navi is, should we go to war? Should we not go to war? These are not mitzvahs. This is advice. What's the right thing to do? Should we go to this place? Should we not go to this place? So a Navi is like someone who's giving us advice like that. So when it says that Moshiach will come, we'll have judges again. And advisors, it means we'll have judges and we'll have Nevi'im once again. That's what it means. Okay, now let's start. Here's where you can follow it easier, is from the paragraph on page 98 that starts with the word ukeshem. Shem sheyesh nehatzivu l'shmoi l'shavtayir. Just like there's a mitzvah to listen to the judges. Even today, there's no Beis HaMikdash, but still there are judges, and you have to listen to what the judges say. Judges meaning a bezdin, of Rabbanim. Like it says now in Parsha, you should go to the judges that'll be in your days. Doesn't matter that in previous generation the judges were greater tzaddikim, they knew more Torah. Every generation should go to the judges of that generation. The same applies to Nevi'im. That Nevi'im are also something which exists in all generations. What does it say? Hashem said to Moshe, Navi mikirbecha me'achecha kameni yokim lecha. Moshe is speaking to the Yidden. Navi mikirbecha me'achecha kameni. There's going to be a Navi amongst you, like me, like Moshe, and Elav Tishma, and you have a mitzvah to listen to what the Navi says. And the Rambam elaborates on this in a sefer which is called Mada. What does he write? These words: Misoid Hadas Leida. One of the foundations of our religion is to know Shakel Menabes Bnei Adam. Hashem speaks to Nevi'im and speaks to them, to human beings. And the Rambam also elaborates on the mitzvah l'shmeya and the Navi. So therefore, you have to listen to the Navi. It means Hashem is telling you whatever He's telling you through this Navi. Yeah. The pasuk, the one on the top of the page, Navi Mikir B'cham. Oh, that's Rambam. Miyisoid Hadas. Yisoid means foundation. When the foundations of our religion is Leda, to know. Leda, to know, like the word das. Shakel, that Hashem, Menave as Bnei Adam, prophesizes to humans. That Hashem speaks to humans and tells them different things, and these people give it over to others. And the Rambam also elaborates on the mitzvah, the Shmoi Navi. These two words is a mitzvah. It says, Elav to Shmon. You should listen to him. So if the Navi says something and you don't listen, you violated that mitzvah. Then the Rebbe says these words: Kivan shal Rambam maybe says the Sefer halachas halachas. The Rambam brings it in his Sefer, which is all about halacha. The Rambam is not medrash. The Rambam is not drushim or different kind of commentary. The Rambam is pure halacha. And the fact he says Misayda Hadas, this is one of the foundations of Yiddishkeit. Movement, it's understood, Shazui, Halacha, Negas, Lebnei Yisrael, B'chol Haderis. It's a halacha that is relevant to Yidden in all generations, which means in every generation, just like you have judges, you also can have Nevi'im. But doesn't this contradict the famous Gemara? Adam Shomer Chachamenu, even though there's a Gemara that says, Mishamesu Nevi'im Achreinim, when the last Nevi'im, the later Nevi'im passed away, who are they? Hagi, Saria, Malachi. After that, Nistalka Ruach HaKodesh Misro, this Holy Spirit of Nevuah went away from the Jewish people. So how could you say that there's Nevuah in all times? Once they passed away, there's no longer Nevuah. So the Rebbe says, Diber Pam, I once spoke about this. On the bottom, in footnote 76, it says that in the Kutei Sichos, and this in the volume, on this page, you can see how the Rebbe dealt with this issue. And what did the Rebbe explain? It doesn't mean that it became discontinued completely. Elonistalka. In other words, the wording that's used in Hebrew is very precise. It doesn't say butla or paska. Butla means it was nullified. Paska means it was discontinued. Instead, it says nistalka. And this word could mean that it's not as the way it used to be, but it still can exist. So in other words, just to give an example, the Gemara says, how many Nevi'im did we have? If you look in the book of Navi, you can count with your fingers. Shmuel Navi, Yeshua, this Navi, that Navi, another Navi. I think it says there were 48, maybe men and women, Nevi'im, Muhammad, Devaira. There were more than 48. But the Gemara says there was actually, one opinion says there was 600,000 Nevi'im. And one opinion says twice that amount, 1,200,000 Nevi'im, 1,200,000 Nevi'im. We don't have their names because their names and their prophecies are not found in the Gemara, in the Navi. But that would mean that in every generation there were hundreds or even thousands of people that were Nevi'im. So there was a time that if a person was a tzaddik, davened and learned and reached very high level of ruchnius, they could reach the level of Navi. And in every generation, there were thousands of Nevi'im. By the way, the reason why we don't have the names of their Nevuah, the Gemara says, there's certain Nevuahs which were only relevant at certain times, certain places. And those are not in the book of Navi. And there's other Nevuahs that when the Navi said it, it's relevant to all future. And those are the ones that are written down in the book of Navi. So therefore, there were thousands of Nevi'im in each generation, and that's what changed. After these three Nevi'im passed away, it's no longer common, it's no longer regular, but in each generation there could be a few selected people that are Nevi'im, but you won't find hundreds or thousands of Nevi'im the way it used to be. And there's other places where also it says these words, this and this stopped. And the person say it didn't. And the answer, no, it doesn't mean it stopped completely. It means it's not the way it used to be. Same thing here with Nevuah. They call that Tanayim, no. And in fact, it's obvious because Gam la'achri zeh matzonu hashras ruach hakodesh etzat kama v'kama. We see even after the times of the Nevi'im, there were many people who lived in later generations, and it's clear that they had Ruach HaKodesh. They knew the future, they knew the past, they knew what's going on in Shemayim. And in the bottom, footnote 78, the Rebbe brings a sefer, and this person published a sefer that's called Shailas Etshuvas Min HaShemayim. Anyone ever heard the name of that book? No? You heard? Here, you heard about it here, right? Usually you hear about it in reference to Yutas Kislev. Why? There was one of the Rishonim, one of the people with the Bali Taisvis, they wrote the Taisvis. So from the early commentators, they lived about 700 years ago in France. I think his name was Rabbi Leather or Linus. And he wrote a sefer. What kind of sefer is it? He went to sleep at night, he put down a blank piece of paper. Oh, back to the blank piece of paper again. He had a blank piece of paper, wrote down a question. When he woke up in the morning, there was an answer. And it wasn't from the truck running by that thing. Anyway, he took all these questions and answers and made a sefer out of it. So the sefer is called the sponsor from Shemayim, questions and answers from Shemayim. The reason why it's brought down in the Sichas is because most of the questions and answers, there are no dates. A few of them have a date. One of them, the date is Yutas Kislev, and next to those words it says Yom Desura. It's a day of good news. We know nothing in history except for Yutas Kislev that happened with the Alter Rebbe that this is a day of good news or anything. But this is Nebuah. Such a thing that you write a question on a piece of paper and you get an answer from Shemayim, that's Nebuah. So this person who published the Sefer gave an introduction. An introduction, he brings all sources. It's an amazing work that he did. He compiled so many sources of people who lived 600 years ago, 700 years ago, more, and they had prophecy. In fact, even in Gemara, one of the sources I was shocked, because these are things we learned but never paid attention. He brings a person, his name was Rabbi Zriel Hanavi. When did he live? 700 years ago. But there was another person called Rabbi Menachem the Navi. He lived also about 700 years ago. So we see, in fact, not only that, the Rambam, when he writes about prophecy, he writes conditions. Who could be a prophet? How could you be a Navi? What's not a Navi? What is a Navi? You can't just come and say, Shalom Aleichem. My name is Getzel and I'm a Navi. No, there's certain conditions. He has to show and prove that he's a Navi. He has to be a big tzaddik. So the Rebbe writes, they call on top of the page 99, they call Tanoim and Agei the Nebuah, even though he brings so many conditions about Nebuah, like maybe her Rambam Shum Tanoim, the Rambam doesn't bring any of the conditions that Agei is Mana Nebuah. Doesn't bring anything about the time of Nebuah, which means he doesn't say that after those Nevi'im passed away, there can't be a Navi. He should have said that. That's one of the conditions. That, in fact, he lived 800 years ago. He should have said, and in our days, there can't be a Nebuah if he's writing all the conditions. So therefore, it's clear to us that according to the Rambam, this is not a condition. Nebuah could be even today. He said, there's something even stronger. This is not in the Sefer of Halachas, but in a different, something called the Geras Teman. The Rambam wrote a letter to the Jewish community in Yemen about the subject of Moshiach. And one of the things he writes there is, he writes about a certain year, Tachzer and Nevuah Yisrael. We're going to see Nevuah returning to the Jewish people. Then the Rambam writes these words, Ein Suffolk. By the way, he writes, I have a tradition that I received from my father, who received from his father, and his father, and his father, and his father, all the way back to the first generation of the Beis Hamikdash, that in this certain time, we're going to see Nebuah coming back, and this Nebuah that's going to come back will be Hagdomas Mashiach. It'll be something which will be an introduction to Mashiach. Why? Because it says when Mashiach will come, V'nibu, V'nechem, U'V'neseichem, and all your sons and all your daughters will prophesy. In other words, everyone will become a Navi. So being that part of the things of Mashiach is that everyone will have Nebuah, so therefore, one of the things that prepares us for Mashiach's times is that we start seeing Nebuah again in an open way. But again, it doesn't mean that it never was. It means it'll become more open, more pronounced, more public than it used to be in the olden days because it was only selected people in generation. What?
We see the prophecies coming in, like, coming in a real way.
The Rebbe will soon explain. First of all, the Rebbe says that the Rambam speaks about a time. Some people say In that time, we're talking about 700-800 years ago, there was someone called Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid. He wrote a sefer, a very famous commentator, and he lived a life which was very similar to the Baal Shem Tov. Stories of that he knew things about the future, about the past, miracles that he performed. That was sort of the beginning of it, and certainly the Baal Shem Tov and the Talmid of Baal Shem Tov. That's what you saw: people who knew what was going on in different places of the world. Now, I just read this story. Maybe some of you read it because it was published somewhere. But I'm just giving an example that Rabbi Groner, Rebbe's secretary, told the story. And when the Frierdiker Rebbe was in Poland, there was a story with this individual who had a business, and he had other people in the same business who were competition with him. And they obviously were looking to put him out of business because he was doing well. And they did what unfortunately happened. They filed a false accusation against him. They wrote that they know for a fact that he doesn't pay taxes on all the money that he earns. And they were hoping that they'll put him out of business. He won't have the competition anymore. Of course, when he got that letter from the government that he's being accused and he has to come to court, he was devastated. He was a frum Jew, but he didn't believe in Rebbes and miracles and these kind of stories. His wife was different. She was a very strong believer. And she said, you have to go. The Lubavitcher Rebbe lives in Poland now. You have to go to the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He didn't want to. She pushed him. Eventually, he went. Comes to the Frierdiker Rebbe. And the Frierdiker Rebbe says, I suggest that you go, there's a dentist by the name of such and such in Vilna, which is in Lithuania, and I suggest that you go visit this dentist, and Hashem will help you. He walked out, he was very angry. I knew there's nothing to go for. I mean, I'm asking him about a court case, tells me to go see a dentist. What am I going to come to the dentist and say, I have a problem with the court case? I'll make a fool out of myself. But he made up his mind, he's not going to any dentist, that's it. When he comes home and his wife said, what did the Rebbe say? Go to the dentist? Okay, you're going to the dentist. He says, no way. And she said, yes, you're going to the dentist. Anyway, she pushed and she pushed and she pushed. He finally gave in and he went to the dentist in Vilna. Anyway, he walks in, made an appointment, sits down on the chair, and the dentist says naturally, so which tooth is hurting you? So he says, no, none of my teeth are hurting me. No? So what are you doing here? He was so embarrassed. What is he going to tell him? But he had no choice. He says, the Lubavitcher Rebbe told me to come to you about a certain problem. Then he was surprised. Oh, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, what did he tell you? He saw that there's something there. He must be connected in some way. Told him the story. So he thinks for a second and says, you know what? Come tomorrow and this hour in the morning, and we'll take it from there. Okay. He comes the next day, and he's sitting in his chair waiting, and he hears he's working with another patient, but he hears him telling the patient his story. And again, he was in shock. What is he doing? This is something so secretive, so confidential. How can he go tell this person my story? Anyway, when he finishes, he comes back to him and says, listen, I have a patient next door who's a judge. And I told him what the story was. He wants to speak to you. So go both of you in this room and we can have a conversation. And the judge asked him questions. And he told the judge how it's all, fabricated, it's not true. And he tells him what he does do, and he has how he wants to defend himself. So then the judge says, let me take a look on my calendar. He takes out his calendar, looks on the calendar, and he says, yep, actually that day, I'm going to be the judge who's going to be making the ruling. So you know what? When you come to court, remember, from this point on, you don't know me. You never saw me. I don't know you. We never had a conversation. But that day in court, I'm going to ask you questions, and you tell me exactly the same thing you told me here. Everything will be okay. Sure enough, he goes to court. He presents his case, and they're accusing him. And then he gives his defense, and the judge rules that he's innocent, and he can go home. Think of the story. The Rebbe knew that there's going to be that in Vilna there's a dentist, that this judge is going to be visiting him on the day that he arrives there. I mean, it took time to go there till he traveled, till he went. It's going to be on the same day. Not only that, if the story is accurate in its details, then the judge had to take out his calendar to know if he's going to be the judge on that day. The Frierdiker Rebbe already knew that he's going to be the judge on that day, sent him there, and that's how he was helped. This is Nevuah, that you know, the only way that this is possible that you have knowledge of things on a higher spiritual plane, and you can, and this is from the Baal Shem Tov and on, we saw this, not one person, but so many tzaddikim and so many stories. That means the Nevuah became much more open. The Rebbe will soon explain that about the Baal Shem Tov. So what's the reason for this? Why is it happening? So he says, the Yesh Leimar, we can say the explanation is based on what we said before. Which means in order, everything that happens when Mashiach comes, Hashem wants it to be in a way that we will be able to accept it. Like by Matan Torah, last week's Parsha. What happened when Hashem started to speak? They all passed out. They had to bring him back and bring him back to life. Then Hashem said, the next one, again they passed out. In other words, there were tremendous things being revealed, but it was too overwhelming. The whole point is that when Mashiach comes, there'll be even greater things revealed, but it wouldn't overwhelm us. We'll be able to accept it and absorb it. So how does that happen? How could you make a person be more prepared? You prepare him before. And that's why Hashem arranged that before Mashiach comes, there should already be Nevuah. So when Mashiach comes and there'll be Nevuah, it'll be something which we'll be able to absorb, be able to receive, be able to contain. In order for us to be able to receive what's going to be revealed in the times of Mashiach, there has to be an aschala now, which means in the time now is also Yetzayich, which means advice, but the way a Navi gives advice. So that will allow us, that will enable us, that we'll be able to receive in a way that it'll be internalized, and we'll be able to absorb it and retain it, and not chas v'sholem, it won't break us. The Gila, the course, what's going to be revealed in the days of Mashiach. So it's a halacha for all generations. Even now. What are the foundations of Yiddishkeit is to know, page 100. Shakel Nenavel is Bnei Adam, that Hashem prophesizes with humans. Shetamid B'chol Aderes Shaykh Ha'inyan the Gila Nevuah Lamata. That there's always a possibility, there's always Nevuah, there's always people that Hashem communicates with them. But the only difference is, then it was a lot, and now it's very few. Ad ledargis nevuah. In fact, there's even a level which is me'ain nevuas Moshe, which is similar to the level of Moshe. Because it says in the pasuk, Moshe Rabbeinu told the Yid, Navi okim lahem, I will make a Navi. I mean, this is Hashem speaking to Moshe now. Navi akim lohem, I will give the Yidden a Navi, v'kerev achayim from their brothers, kamecha, someone like you, which means shleimus in Nevuah kavur b'Rambam. Moshe was the highest kind of Navi. V'apizeh yesh leimer hatam l'kach she'Rambam. Now we can understand why the Rambam elaborates so much ba'if the Nevuas Moshe. The Rambam in his Sefer goes into the details. How is Moshe Rabbeinu's Nevuah different than all other Nevi'im? He was superior to all other Nevi'im. All other Nevi'im had a Nevuah when they were sleeping. Moshe was the only one, he was awake. All other Nevi'im, Hashem spoke to them through a Malach. Moshe, Hashem spoke to them directly. All other Nevi'im, Hashem spoke to them in a way that it was a symbol. He showed a ladder like Yaakov. He showed the menorah like the story with another Navi. We showed him a menorah, and this means the menorah means this, and that means that. But Moshe Rabbeinu didn't speak through symbols and signs. He spoke directly, like one person speaks to another person. Why is it so important that the Rambam should go into the details? If no one else is like Moshe, why is it important to know? And if it's because it's necessary to know when Mashiach comes, so Moshe Rabbeinu will be here himself. Everything will be clear. So the answer is, even before Moshe Rabbeinu comes back, it's important to know that Hashem speaks to humans, which means Hashem reveals himself to humans in a way that he relates to them, communicates to them, and also there'll be shleimus b'zeh, k'pi shoya eitzel Moshe. And b'chol der shaykh navi elikim akim lahem kamecha. In every generation, there could be somebody that Hashem will set up, like Moshe. Shekol navi sheyamad ach Moshe Rabbeinu, every navi that comes after Moshe, we don't believe in him because he's showing us certain miracles. It's all because Moshe Rabbeinu told us that if a person comes with these and these conditions, you should accept him as a navi. That means that Nevuas Moshe extends to all generations. So the only difference is there are different levels. The Gila and Nevuah yesh lechalukim adregas. In Nevuah there are different levels. Like the Rambam writes, in our generation, who is that Navi that's close to the level of Moshe Rabbeinu, the Sider Reinu, Kvei Kedushas Meruchama Admo. When the Rambam writes that Nevuah will return to the Jewish people, and that Nevuah will be Haggadomas Mashiach, will be an introduction of Mashiach. Certainly, a Nevuah Ti b'Mashiach Tzidkenu. Certainly, Mashiach himself will have a Nevuah. Like it says, Navi Gadolhu, Karev the Moshe Rabbeinu. The Rambam writes that Mashiach will have Nevuah, and his Nevuah will be greater than all other Nevi'im, and it'll be very close to the level of Moshe Rabbeinu. And that's in the Rambam where he talks about Halacha. Okay, I guess we'll stop here. To be continued. So basically, the main point that was brought up until here is that in every generation there's a Navi, and even now we have Nevi'im, but yet in the generation itself, there's certain Nevi'im. In every generation, there's someone that his Nevuah is in many levels, is even close to the level of Moshe Rabbeinu. And then soon we'll see where the Rebbe is leading to. Yes?
Is it possible for a person to have an Nevi'im and not know that they have an Nevi'im?
No.
No.
I mean, the person to be a Navi and not know that they're a Navi. Not really. They might have a certain spiritual gifts, but if it's a Nevuah, that means they feel. The Rambam writes, the Navi will feel the presence of Hashem upon him, and he'll feel that he became a different person.
But why isn't it more revealed now that we have Nevi'im?
Why isn't it more revealed now? Well, what we're saying is it's not so common now. It's not like it's common as it used to be.
But there are Nevi'im currently, or no?
According to this, there could be Nevi'im right now, yeah. But not necessarily that they're known publicly who they are.
So they know, but we just don't know.
Right.
Okay, that was the piece I was missing.